Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left. Most importantly, honest, bold, and fueled by good whiskey. In Whiskey Veritas, we are Whiskey Congress. Join the evolution.
Whiskey Congress is back in session following the Easter holiday. And today is, of course, Dingus Day for our Polish listeners out there. If you don't have the look I'm getting from Steve is, what the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, no. I know all about Dingus Day, and I mean, like, living in Cleveland, how could you not, right?
Right. Okay.
Especially with Parma being right down the road.
Right. Which is very, very Polish neighborhood for those who aren't from here. If you haven't ever seen it, Google or you go on YouTube and type in Anderson Cooper's Dingus Day and watch him try to talk about it on CNN and get a case of the giggles where he completely becomes unglued.
Do you know the history behind it?
I know it's Polish and it's dudes whacking women with pussy willows while getting shot at.
Jim's partially Polish himself.
I am.
So this is not good out of you.
My Uncle Joe would show up on Dingus Day with pussy willows and get shot at with perfume by my sister and aunt.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys killing it out there.
Yeah, it's whatever. Parma and Lackawanna, not as different as both would probably like to claim. Anyway, on the topic of Easter, Pope Francis passed away, and he's widely regarded as one of the more progressive popes, if not the most progressive pope ever. I'm very, first of all, rest in peace, but I'm very concerned about what could come from this, because with the political environment we're dealing with right now, if the Catholic Church takes a hard turn to the right, which is definitely a possibility, if not a likelihood, if nothing else, my holidays become much, much worse, because one thing that I've been doing to people who have been just licking Trump's boots for the last several years is whenever the Vatican would come out and say things like, you need to be more compassionate, you need to be doing these things, I would say to some of my Trump sycophantic friends things like, so which side you taking, the Vatican or Trump? Now, I'm pretty sure you can guess who won, but that was a sort of an arrow in my quiver, which, if I'm sounding selfish or whatever, sorry. But it's going to be, as if there wasn't enough turmoil in the world right now, we now have 20 days of time probably before a conclave gets assembled. And I did read up on some of the potential replacements, and it seems like it's one way or the other. It's either folks that Pope Francis put in place who are like him, progressive leaning and more about tolerance, and then there's the other school, and we will see.
And I think you're on to something there. I don't know exactly what it means, right? It seems like the church is taking a back seat a little bit, right?
Yeah,
I think so. the foreign policy, the international sort of stakes politically with what Trump is doing with trade and countries looking at our allies reevaluating their relationship with us in trade and in foreign policy. I think this story is not as big as it would have been 10 years ago, right? When I was in law school, Pope, I think it was John Paul II.
John Paul II was followed by, John Paul died in roughly 2006.
Right, while I was in law school.
Okay.
So it was John Paul II. So that was, now, mind you, I went to DePaul University, which is a Catholic school, which is, and even in law school, like, there was acknowledgement that the Pope had passed, right? And
sure.
I remember distinctly, the kid sitting next to me was from Notre Dame, and he, on his screen, I remember we were sitting in contracts, and he was constantly refreshing the screen, like waiting for the white smoke.
Oh, okay. So this is after the conclave had started.
Yeah,
okay.
right. Like, and just going through that process, and he like and that it was CNN, right? And he was just waiting to see that, and he wasn't the only one. Like, I remember walking around Chicago, like it was on all the TVs, right? If you were downtown and there were TVs on the screen, like you saw it, they were talking about the Pope. People were like, you could audibly hear people talking about it when like I was walking down the street with my book bag on, just sort of kind of amazed, like how big of a deal this was because I hadn't seen that before, right?
Oh, okay.
Like I don't remember.
Well, I mean, John Paul would have been instituted as Pope when you were in elementary school, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, he was there for a long time,
right? So, it was just it was something for me. It stands out in my mind how big of a deal it was when Pope John Paul II died, and it just feels that this thing, which is a big thing for the Pope to be replaced, and the Vatican, the conclave, and everything, the white smoke, the whole process, it just feels like it's kind of taken a backseat because the world is in so much flux right now.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, the fact is, looking at my news feed, I didn't find out that he had passed until this morning. There's the just awkwardness of the fact that one of the last people to visit with him while he was alive was J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance is just getting torched on social media. Like, the Pope died of cringe, and I've got mixed feelings about that kind of stuff because it's not helpful, but it is kind of funny.
I mean, it's funny. Listen, a friend of ours who will go unnamed for various reasons, sent us both.
Yep.
And I thought it was hilarious, right? Like, Pope meets with J.D. Vance, or J.D. Vance is so cringe that the Pope met with them yesterday and then decided to die. I mean, and look, J.D. Vance is also a guy who made a donut shop really awkward.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so those jokes are founded, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And you're a comedian, and you.
Oh yeah, I'm not.
No. I'm just saying, but I just like the jokes about J.D. Vance and the Pope and the timing. I think if you have our level of depravity, then they're fine.
Yeah. And again, I'm not condemning anyone who did it. But I'm not going to pile on. But I did laugh.
Look, and J.D. Vance is a guy who has Ohio roots and ties.
Yeah.
With him coming out of Ohio, there's a little bit of that sort of very minor bit where you're just like, man, maybe his Midwestern Ohio heart of it all sensibilities shine through, and maybe he's not this giant douche wagon, right? That we see time and time again. And the one thing I will say is that if you go back and listen through read through the Signal chat sort of transcripts, right?
Okay, we're talking about the Signalgate with Hegseth,
right? The whole thing,
that
which
might come
I know
up again later,
right? But the first time around, when you read that, it was what he and here's the problem for me. In those chats, he was very clear that he's relatively level-headed and he's aware of public sentiment, and he's got a very good read on both good and bad for them from both sides, right? I think, and for me, the problem is I think that's even more problematic because now I know that when this guy is up there talking nonsense on 60 Minutes or whatever news show he's on, a Meet the Press or whatever the Sunday shows, now even more. Now I know for a fact that he's full of shit.
I was saying that he's a complete phony and he's
right.
marching
And so, and to me, that's scary. I don't know which is scarier: the true believer who can't, there's just nothing you could tell them, or the person that knows that they're full of shit, and when all the lights are off and it's off the record, they know exactly what they're doing, but it's just that they don't care, right? Or that their mission or whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish means more than literally the stability of our democracy and our republic.
Yeah, or just maintaining their position of power. I mean, he gets asked to be vice president. That's hard to say no to. It's certainly hard to say no to and maintain a career. And then when you're in the Trump administration, we've seen time and again. I mean, Trump was hesitant to tell people not to murder his previous vice president. So that's your boss. I mean, if you want to say that it's an act of disingenuous cowardice, I'll agree with you. But if you take that position, you know you're one step away from being.
Then here's the other part. I mean, that's a very valid point, because if I have any, I don't know, respect for myself at all, when Donald Trump comes to me and says, "Do you want to be my vice president?" Right, and then I go and I look at Mike Pence, who has come outright and said, like, "Look, you could have called them off. You could have stopped this. Like, they came after me. They came after my family. I wasn't about to, break the law for you. And you have a responsibility that directly ties to January 6th. I don't know how you accept that job without just assuming or acknowledging that you're going to bow to the great leader every time."
Yeah, I mean, that comes with the gig. There's no
because at this point, right? Like, okay, Mike Pence probably knew he was going to have to kiss some ass, but thought he would be able to maintain a certain level of common sense, right? I think he realizes now, right, after he was chased and had to be swept out of the Capitol building, that he didn't go far enough with his allegiance to Trump, right? And I think that message is very loud and clear that whoever replaces Mike Pence as his running mate, as the vice president, you are going to have to be willing to have no limits, no rules, no bounds, no parameters on your loyalty.
Well, and I think, sorry, you're 100% right, but I think where you were going earlier with the previous Signal chat, he showed levels of sanity in that chat.
That's right. And that's, again, that's where it's scary, because he's saying, I know that I'm coming into this position with Donald Trump, and I have to pledge, like,
fealty,
complete and utter fealty, right? Going to John Wick and the High Table or Game of Thrones or wherever you figure out what the word fealty means, right? Because I guarantee you it's one of those two things, and you didn't learn it in school. But wherever your level of fealty to Trump in this scenario as his vice president, you know that it's everything.
It's baked in the cake,
right? Like there are no rules, there are no limitations, and for him to be able to completely have that level-headed, objective, hey, we can't do this and this is why, and the reasons are legitimate. Like, yeah, no, he's exactly right. You can't say this, or you don't want to push back. And yes, the president said this, and we have to figure out how to walk it back. So he understands, and then for him to understand all of it, but then go along with it and sell it and promote it, like, that's the part to me that's terrifying, saying, like, people are like, oh, if something were to happen to Trump, J.D. Vance would come in and he's telling you that, like, look, if something happens to Trump, he's going to pick up the mantle and run faster, bigger, faster, stronger.
I'll be curious. Well, first of all, I don't want to say I hope we find out soon, but I do. Hopefully through the 25th Amendment, but whatever.
Listen, I'm just telling you, J.D. Vance is not the guy who's going to come in and right the ship. Can anyone? I mean, if you come in and denounce everything that they've done, or most of the things that they've done, and said, like, look, last few years have been a complete shit show, but we got rid of the cancer or whatever. Okay, yeah, maybe, but J.D. Vance isn't going to come in and kind of come back towards the middle, right? I think J.D. Vance, if anything, goes even further away. I can't even say right.
No, it's not right. It's Trump.
It's not left and right. Like, he's going to go Trumpier than Trump, right? Like, I mean, because if that guy, because J.D. Vance is not an idiot.
No,
right?
He's not.
And I'll even go as far as to say, as much as he continually tries to prove us wrong, but Ron DeSantis isn't an idiot.
No, I agree with that.
Right? Even though, like,
but
see,
they're two different people.
No, they are. They're completely different people. Completely different. But Ron DeSantis, not being an idiot, but also I will argue having some form of principle. He's distanced himself from Trump. He's still along the party lines. He's still MAGA, but he's put some distance between himself and Trump.
He's under the radar.
Right? And that's intentional.
Of course.
Right? But J.D. Vance is in a similar position that DeSantis was in, but DeSantis decided he was going to be his own man. Right? Now,
that's true.
I think DeSantis, if he was willing to listen to the right coach, me, right, could have got us out of this. Right? If DeSantis never wears those weird white boots, right, and just is able to subdue his personality enough, he probably ends up winning, right? And then we don't have to deal with this. But, okay, fine. J.D. Vance, though, is just like, look, I'm not subduing shit. Like, I will suck this guy's cock if I have to. I'm riding this wave all the way through. And if they take him out and they make me the president, I'm going to go even further Trumpy, right?
I hope you're wrong.
I'm not wrong. I'm telling you, I got to read on these people. I haven't been wrong to this point, and I am telling you, J.D. Vance goes further Trump than Trump if Trump were to not be around anymore. You know, drop dead of a heart attack, 25th Amendment, Melania takes him out, whatever. You know, I mean...
This is something that I've always found fascinating, and it's true. This is as bipartisan as it gets. When people are campaigning versus when they're having a one-on-one conversation with just a genuine person, even when recorded, podcast, interviews, whatever, they're totally different people. DeSantis and J.D. Vance, when they tried to do public stunts, we mentioned the donut shop thing. That was just painful, if not hilarious. Or painful and hilarious.
But the real life version of it was terrible and awful and hilarious. And then the spoof of it with the kid from The Sixth Sense or whatever.
Yeah, Haley Joel Osment,
yeah, I mean, was
equally
as funny. By the way. Yeah, I know. But still. So.
But yeah, it was just, they put on this act because they think they have to, and very few people don't do it. I can only think of one. I've spent
enough time kind of, I'm not a public figure per se, but close enough. And here's what happens, right? I spend a lot of time speaking to, city council, city government, neighborhood councils, like all these different groups. And what happens is the first couple that you do, you probably go in and you're your very genuine self. Right?
Okay.
At least that's how I approach it. The problem with that is that when you're your genuine self, there's some people who love it, there's some people who hate it, and then there are some people who are going to attack it, right? And whether it's dressing you down with praise or, just attacking you with ridicule, it has an impact on you, right? Even when someone is laying compliments in front of you, right? They're just like, oh, we're so happy you're here, and everything you're saying is great, and I'm here to support you 100%. There are other people who don't feel quite as strongly, right? Like, and you can see and feel their reaction, right? And then there are the people who flat out hate you. So what happens is you recognize that you need to have some level of objectivity and neutrality because you don't want to piss anybody off to the point that you get to, right? But everybody does it because you don't want to come across in any certain way that's going to set off any one group, but you want to be clear. You want to get your message across, and you do want to be genuine. But you do have to. There is a. You can't just say whatever it is you want to say, right?
The only people I can think of that I genuinely believe every word they're saying in terms of the major political figures are Bernie Sanders and AOC. I think they believe, and I'll even throw in Ilhan Omar. I think she is speaking from her heart. She's being genuine. And let me be fair. There's also some psychos out there who are speaking from their heart, but they're fucking crazy.
I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is another one.
I think she believes what she's saying.
Believes everything that she's saying.
I think you're right.
Right? I mean, I think you can go down the line, right. and that's not. And listen, there's some good and there's some bad with it, right? And it all depends on what camp you fall on. My point is that a guy like J.D. Vance, or like I can't attack these guys because they act one way in front of a town hall, but they're completely different on a one-on-one personal situation, right? Like that I'm not going to attack them for because I've been in that situation.
Okay.
I am pretty much me, no matter where the situation I'm in. But that's also part of the reason why I haven't really escalated in the political realm, right?
Well, I'm sure you tone it down when you're dealing with a city councilman. You're toning it down. Can I bring up? You had a conversation with a senator. I won't name the senator unless you want, but you had a phone call with him randomly, and the guy was just dropping F-bombs all over the place. I'm like, I want that fucking guy to get on the fucking TV and do exactly that. He won't. Right. But in a way, because even though it's con man central, that's probably a lot of what people love about Trump. They're like, oh, he's saying what he really means. He told someone to go fuck themselves, and like.
But even Trump does it. Trump in front of the TV, and well, here's the deal.
Bill Maher.
Bill Maher told you Trump one-on-one is different than Trump in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Right, and that is the biggest issue that I have with everything that's going on, because, you talk to me and you ask me, what would you say, what would you do if you were, got invited to a party with Trump, right? And the reason why that actually gave me more pause than it probably should have to a lot of people's minds is because I understand what happens, right? I've been in these circles with high-profile people, and when it's just me and them one-on-one, that version of them is a completely different version than the person that you see on TV, right? And having myself been, at multiple times speaking, given presentations, been asked to speak, whatever, in front of, larger public crowds, I've learned that those are two different sort of deliveries, right? And,
sure.
And the problem is that one-on-one is always a lot more personable because they're closer. They're physically closer to you. They're looking you in the eye. You've shook their hand, right? Like you can tell, like they're, if they're genuinely laughing or if they're, like, because you get some people that are like, man, look, I gotta apologize. I hate crowds. I hate being around this. I'm a little bit antsy, right? So, don't mind the fact that I'm sweating like a psychopath, right? Like, and you're like, you know what? I feel the same way. I get it, right? Like, just so, but that personable relatableness, right? Or however you want to say it, that's part of the issue with all of this, right? Because we all have that, I hate this guy because he is the opposite of everything that I stand for, and I'm going to fight him, and I want to, take the brass knuckles to him, the whole thing. But then you get an opportunity to get one-on-one with him, and all of a sudden, you're not Tommy Toughnuts anymore, and some of their, like all of a sudden you're face-to-face, so you can feel their heartbeat, and that human element comes into play. And that's what makes it hard. And, that's what... It's hard because, I feel... I know that these guys are bad guys. And I know what they're doing is taking us down a road that's going to lead to some very hard times for an extended period of time. But, just being a human, a person, and understanding that a lot of people in the situation that are on the MAGA side got caught up, right? And they maybe they want out, but they can't figure out how to get out, or there's still some sort of beacon of hope, and that's why it's not like we got a fully ass revolt, but then at the same time,
there have been two Republicans who've stood up to Trump, meaning Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, and they are both out of the government sector now. Their careers were essentially ended by the fact that they challenged the throne. So in addition to what you're saying with the relatability and all that, 100% true, there's also just utter fucking political cowardice. And again, those two who I guarantee if I had a policy conversation with either Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger, I would go, yeah, we're not going to see eye to eye on much here. But I do have respect for them because they literally stood their ground and they knew it would be a threat to their career. And, they've bounced back. They're doing just fine. But their political career's over, at least for now. And, again, I respect them for it. But I can also look at the Marco Rubios, who you called spineless, and I think you can defend that. And
Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham,
Ted Cruz. Well, Lindsey Graham's next level spineless. I mean, that guy literally flipped. I mean, he's done so many about faces. He should be on a. I don't have.
It's almost like it seems like everybody's got the same info on Lindsey, right? I think we all know what the info on Lindsey Graham is. It's just like, dude, either put him out of his misery or remove him as a liability, right? Because I don't think that, I think Trump, they all have their dirty little secrets, but I think all of them, most of them we can probably figure out or know, or when they came out, we'd be like, all right, fine, whatever. I think Lindsey Graham, though, we all know what his dirty secret is, right?
Right.
But I do think that, look, this guy's clearly fought to keep that dirty little secret under wraps. And I think if it came out, I don't think that he could follow the Trump model of just own it and then blame it on somebody. You know what I mean?
He would not get reelected in South Carolina.
Yeah, but it's just like somebody on the Republican side put Lindsey Graham out of this tortured misery that he's in with this secret that is not a well-kept secret, expose it, get rid of him, and then at least, even if you put,
better yet, expose it and say
it's South Carolina,
okay.
Right? It's South Carolina. You're not gonna get a Democrat in there. You're not gonna get a moderate, but at least get someone who just doesn't suck so bad, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's ultimately what I'm getting.
Interesting choice of words,
right? Like, well,
boom. All right. So, were you able to follow any of the story with the Supreme Court doing like a last minute order to prevent deportations?
No, I mean, about is the best we could. It's a mess, but go ahead.
So basically, if I understand it correctly, lower courts were making decisions. It got appealed by the ACLU to say we need to stop these deportations because we've seen what's happened. We've seen the fucking nonsense with the guy from Maryland whose name I'm going to draw a blank on, but you've heard of it a million times.
His name also it's like Killmonger Abreu or something like that.
It's not quite that, but so they basically came in and I think in a 7-2 ruling said stop this shit for now. We need to keep due process. Now Justice Alito came out and said that he was disgusted by the court doing this last minute without it being processed through the lower courts. And he's kind of in a funny spot now because he looks like he was partially loyal to Trump, but not completely. But the rest of the Supreme Court said, nope, got to stop it. And this is a real test of the durability of our democracy because we've now had the Supreme Court come out and say, you're not acting with absolute power. You have to follow what the Supreme Court says. Oh, by the way, you've bragged multiple times about how you made the Supreme Court in your image, Mr. Trump. Now, this is how you don't have absolute power. And this is a real test of whether or not he actually does. And it's scary as shit.
It's a test for the Supreme Court, right? Like, I think I said this on the last show, but, SCOTUS has got to come out and, like, you made your decision and you need to speak to the media and reaffirm that you made your decision and leave no gray area or no wiggle room, like with this whole thing. Like, they come out and just like, hey, you need to make sure that Kilmar Abrego Garcia gets back from Ecuador. And they're like, oh, well, they said we need to assist that he gets back. That means the transport and not necessarily getting out, or whatever they said, right? But they basically said...
El Salvador.
Or what did I say?
Said Ecuador, yeah.
Oh, sorry. But yeah, I mean, like, the court made a very clear determination that we need to work to get this guy back. And they said, yeah, well, that could be interpreted different ways, and we're interpreting it this way. that we'll figure out the logistics of him getting back once they decide that they want to release him from jail. And so, again, Supreme Court, but hasn't really come out and said, we've made our decision. Our decision is clear. And just for anyone who may be confused, it means this. They need to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
If we still have a constitution that matters.
Right. If we have a constitution that matters, if you don't want this to be a waste of time on your part, then you need to come out and say the decision that you made and that it needs to be adhered to, and then basically force Trump's camp to either do what they should do and follow the order, or be demonstrative and just say, yeah, maybe you did come out and say that, but either way, we're still just going to say, screw you. And then at that point, now we as a country have to decide, all right, are we going to let this ride?
And I don't know who makes that decision and what happens when because there's going to be people who are, like, kind of what you were saying before, the likes of Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham, when they look themselves in the mirror, they know they're puppets. They know it. They know what's going on is fucking wrong. Will they ever have the balls to stand up and say anything about it? No. I'm not betting on it.
Nope. But now you're at a situation, who's left?
Steve, I'm worried, is it senior military brass?
But they're firing senior military brass.
Yes, they are.
Right?
Yeah, they are.
They are firing them at a rate that is very uncomfortable, right? Like
right.
From high
based
level
on loyalty
positions.
reasons.
Right. You're not 100% loyal to Trump. You don't fully support his mission, vision, narrative, whatever. You're out. And I don't see how that's not problematic for more people. Right? But the problem is you go on social media and they're like, yeah, this is what we voted for. If you're not loyal, if you don't share Trump's vision, you should be out. Right? So I'm pretty sure the person who's putting that on social media, right, and that's hanging out at the Irish pub down the street, I don't think that I'm going to be able to convince them at any point that anything that Trump is doing is wrong. Right? Until his boot is directly on their neck.
Which it won't be for a very long time, because they're typically white people. I said it.
I don't know.
And not just that,
well,
but it
here's
plays
the thing,
a role.
though. With where this is going, though, because they're already trying to make the argument that they should be able to deport U.S. citizens who commit certain violent crimes to other countries who they have a contract with, right? It's just like, oh, this is your third drug offense. Well, now you go to El Salvador, right? Oh, well, you've been convicted of rape. You go to El Salvador, right? Like, and we all talk tough. Like, we want to beat up all the rapists and we want to beat up all the pedos and everything else. But now they're literally talking about trying to establish a pipeline where the U.S. is paying foreign countries to treat its U.S. citizens, right, who have been found guilty of certain crimes as bad as humanly possible.
Well, worse yet, how about the ones who haven't been convicted of crimes?
Well, that's the thing.
That's the more scary
because,
part.
And they're also doing, again, they're eroding due process, right? Ignoring it and eroding it by continuing to just ignore what the court is saying. And even if you support Trump, like that doesn't that doesn't make you raise an eyebrow, right? Because the only thing you could say if you support that is, well, as long as you support anything and everything that Trump says, then you won't have a problem.
And a big part of the problem is that the people you're talking about only get their information from aggressively reaffirming information sources, whether it's Fox News, Newsmax.
Yeah, we know that,
internet.
Though. But this now we're dealing with the result. Right? We're dealing with the result. Basically, like those people were able, by being able to silo where they get their information from, right? The powers that be it Trump and Musk and Stephen Miller and Bannon and everything else, were basically able to co-opt their brains and brainwash them to tell them, like, look, we're the only reliable source for information. We're the only people you can trust. We're the only ones who know anything. We're going to make RFK the Minister of Health because everything he's saying makes perfect sense. Screw vaccines. Like, your baby will likely, probably, maybe be able to survive measles, right? You could tough it out because the Democrats are trying to poison you with fluoride and vaccines.
Right.
So that's what we're up against.
Yeah. And I want to talk real quick about Pete Hegseth because I have my phone with me and I keep hoping it blows up and says Pete Hegseth has been fired or has stepped down. He's in a bad spot. Of course, he's defending himself saying, so if you don't know about Signalgate, look it up. But it's happened again. He was using the Signal app to send stuff. This time he had a chat that had sensitive information that included his wife. I don't know how you do that. Well, I know exactly how you do it. I don't know why you would. But he's getting a lot of pressure. He's getting harangued at press conferences and stuff. But he's standing tall. Trump is standing behind him. I mean, he's proven he's not competent. And why would you expect a guy who came from Fox? Was it Fox Business or Fox? I forget which. But like from that to Secretary of Defense.
So him coming from, people make a big deal about that, but I mean, if let's say Colin Powell had done a stint on the news, right, and then Bush brought him on, I don't think we would all question it. Like, it's not the fact that he came from Fox, it's the fact that his military resume doesn't stack up to any Secretary of Defense that's ever held the position, right?
Well, but wasn't Rumsfeld, did he have a military background? Because I don't think he did. I don't think he did. And
how do you feel about Rumsfeld?
Oh, he's absolutely trash.
If that's your argument, okay, fine, you win.
I found the shorter midget, but anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of days. This story just broke today, and
well, look, I don't think, you said that you hope he gets fired. He's not going to get fired. He's too big of a loyalist. Yes, he's a liability, but the issue is, who do you replace him with? If you're Trump in his camp, right? Like, they vetted all their people that they want because they've got a very specific thing that they are trying to play out. They are not going to remove a vital piece like Hegseth, who's already been, approved and put in, and he was hard to get in.
He was.
And that's the other thing, right? He was confirmed, and it was a controversial confirmation. So if they fire him, not even through Q1, right? I mean, I guess we're technically into Q2, but for them, whatever. Then all of a sudden, like, it's going to, like, even they could recognize the PR nightmare that is, and how big of a push or lift it would be to deal with it. So I don't think there's a chance in hell that he gets fired or replaced anytime.
First of all, I suspect you're right. I'm hopeful that, and again, your other point is valid as well, that they're going to put someone else in there who's maybe more qualified, but probably every bit as loyal. I don't know what it takes to crack the loyalty bubble, but I had an experience today where I was out having a beer at lunch. I shouldn't say that because my client never listened to this, which they don't know we do it anyway.
I don't know why you would say what. Like, anyway, what does that have to do with it? You could have just said you were at lunch.
I could have. Anyway, I'm pretty confident it won't be a problem. And
like, what type of level alcoholic do you have to be?
What, to have a beer at lunch?
I mean, just to not. Anyway, go ahead.
All right,
so make your point.
All right. So I'm sitting there, and a guy and I were talking about the lottery. I'll spare the details because they're kind of boring. And then at one point he said, "Remember when the Mega Millions was $1 billion?" He goes, "No one needs $1 billion, not unless you earned it." Like Elon Musk, he came from nothing. And my head just snapped. I'm like, "But what?" And I did say something incorrect. I said Elon Musk's family was wealthy and that they were involved with diamond mining, and I was wrong. It's emerald mining. But the shit that people will believe, and the guys look at me, just with incredulously saying, like, "How can you not know that Elon Musk is a self-made man?" I'm like, because I know a lot about the guy. I've actually been kind of following Elon Musk since 2013. And it was because I liked what he was proposing in terms of the Hyperloop in California. I've changed my opinion on him after I've learned more about him, but the shit people believe is fucking amazing. Someone came out and said that Trump was...
Rumsfeld was in the Navy, by the way.
Oh, okay, my bad.
And
still a terrible part of...
solid resume, but...
terrible defense secretary.
Yeah, made it to the rank of captain.
Okay,
Hegseth is a major, but I look. My whole point was he's not. He shouldn't be in that position, but he is.
Right.
And there's plenty of ways to attack him as it relates to his military service. The whole thing with Fox is I don't know, neither here nor there with me. But I mean, you could make the argument that like Rumsfeld had a solid naval career, but not to the point where I'm like, all right, it makes sense to make him Secretary of Defense. Donald Rumsfeld holds the title or holds the I guess distinction of being both the youngest and the oldest Secretary of Defense in the U.S., right? He probably shouldn't have been the first time around as the youngest, and he definitely didn't need to be as the oldest. And Hegseth just shouldn't be there, young, old, major or not. He doesn't have the chops for it.
You made a comment about my drinking issues. Let's talk about Hegseth's drinking issues.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's and again, just beyond that, because I don't know what his issues are, right? Like, I know he's had some stuff in the past, but just going off of his performance to this point, right? Like, you've got his military resume that you're just like, no, not up to snuff. And then you take his performance to this point, and it's just like, well, his performance to this point is telling you that you put someone in there who had a resume that told you not to put him in there. And yet, here we are still dealing with them, but they're not moving from him. They won't, because the pieces they have in place, they need in place, and I don't know if they're as easy to replace as you might think, because they got to keep the circle tight. It's hard enough, I think, with the size of our government, which is part of the reason why they want to shrink it. But I mean, they're trying to, they are taking over our government. This is a coup, right?
Yep.
Like, and this is a shift away from a republic and a democracy to an autocracy. That is what they're trying to shift to, right? Like, they're not going to come out and say it because it's not time yet.
They're not coming out and saying it, but they're really not denying it either.
They're not denying it, and you look at what they're doing, and you could sit like if look, they're having success, right? And they may get like, there's no reason to argue with me that they're like, how could you argue with me that that's not what they're trying to do, right? Like they're trying to shift this so that they don't get removed from power, so that they are the only ones who have control. Their narrative, their mission, their belief system is what gets installed, and it's hard to argue that like, you mean to tell me you really think that they're doing all of this because they believe in a republic and a democracy, and if the people vote for the Democrats next time around, they'll be okay? No. Right? Like, they don't want the Democrats to have access, or the progressives, or anyone who's not in their camp. They don't want anyone else to have access. They are trying to close the ranks, right? Circle the wagons around power, right? And then hold on to it.
Well, and I want to kind of use that to segue to something that we touched on earlier, that the people who are these loyalists believe anything that comes out of the mouths of people they want to believe, including Trump just got a physical, and the doctor came out, I think the doctor actually did say this. I don't think Trump said it, but it was leaked that Trump was in perfect physical health, and he bragged about cognitive tests again. And when you brag about something like that as many times as he's done, it actually kind of says to me, your cognition is not great. But they came out and said that he is 6'3" and weighs 224 pounds. Now, I'm 5'9", not in great shape, but not nearly as obese as Trump, and I weigh 215. You're telling me that guy's 9 pounds heavier than me? I mean, it's something that no one should take seriously. It would be literally like if I told you I weighed 150, and you would look at me and go, nah, you don't. But yet, he'll get made fun of on Jimmy Kimmel and the late night talk shows. Saturday Night Live will probably do a bit about it. I'm kind of mocking it here, but what I'm really trying to get my head around, I'm not getting my head around, I know what's going on, but what drives me insane is that you could hear that and not just go, oh, come on.
Well, I mean, I think what you're really trying to say is there are people who will argue with you that he's 6'3", 224.
Absolutely. I know people, if I were to challenge them and say, this is bullshit, right? They would be like, oh, you don't know that.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's the issue, right? Like, there are people who will try to argue with you that he's 6'3", 224. Now, I've, seen him from a distance. He is a taller guy, so the 6'3" is probably accurate. But 224, there's no way. Sorry. Right? Like, look, I'm 5'10", 260.
Now, you're built differently than Donald Trump.
Yes, I am. Built different than a lot of people. But nonetheless,
yes.
Right? Like, all right, using that as a gauge, right? Like, he's taller than me, right?
He's distinctly fatter than you.
Right? He's got a gut that sticks out, 2 feet. So you really think that he weighs 40 pounds less than me? Or, yeah. I mean, come on.
Right. And, I mean, this is in some ways, this might trigger you. In some ways, this is so irrelevant, but he came out the other day and said, I played my golf tournament and I won it. And I made a comment about where we might as well be North Korea a couple weeks ago. I don't know if it was on the show or I think it was on the show, actually. I mean, remember when Kim Jong-il was talked about by his, press people, whatever they were, they claimed that he shot a round of golf, he shot a 38, which would mean
multiple double eagles.
Multiple double eagles, yes. I mean, basically, and I mean, you say this shit, and in North Korea, if you said, okay, that's clearly bullshit. This guy can't probably, swing a golf club. You'd get executed on the spot. We're not there yet, but we've got a guy who can come out and say, well, I won my course championship. Sure you did, Donald.
I mean, here's the thing. The golf thing...
It's handicapped, I'm sure, but whatever. But
whatever, like, we're not seeing that in real time, but I can see the guy compared to other humans, of which I know their weight and size and everything else. And if you dare want to argue with me about, well, you don't know his muscle density and you don't know his body fat percentage, like, yeah, I know bodies, though. Right? Like, I'm sorry, I do, and I can tell you the guy weighs more than 224 pounds by a substantial amount, right? Does it matter? Yes, it matters because he has told a medical doctor that gets paid, that's board certified, to lie about his physical stature, right? So you've got the most powerful the most powerful person in the world as the president of the United States, telling a medical certified board professional to lie about his physical features, statures, everything else, right? And then his supporters believe that lie, even though their eyes are clearly telling them something else, to the point where those people will argue with you that you have derangement syndrome, that you are a leftist whatever, right? And they'll hurl, right, like a lunatic, and you're all these things, all because it's just like, look, that dude is 6'3", 260, 270. Right? Like, we all agree. No. His doctor said he was 224. And that's the problem, because if we can't agree that he's lying about his weight, which he clearly is. Clearly.
Yes. And
unnecessarily. Right. Unnecessarily, just clearly lying about his weight just because he's a narcissistic, vain asshole, then there's just no way that we're going to have common ground on any other topic.
Right.
Right?
It's like,
and that's where that matters as much, because I wanted to sort of get rid of this and this is stupid. I do not care. It's TMZ. It's gossip bullshit, but it's not, because again, if I can't get, again, you look at that guy, he's obviously weighs more than what he's saying. And if you're going to sit there and argue with me about it, then that is literally when people say, like, people arguing over the sky being blue.
I was going to go there next. Yeah, like there's...
it's just like, so there is no common ground. And listen, that is a bad, bad place for us to be.
And I'm going to take common ground out and say there's no basis in reality. Yeah. Common ground involves, like, exchange of opinions. You're just fucking making shit up, or having shit made up get told to you and choosing to believe it because we mustn't insult the glorious leader. All right, we should get going in a little bit, but I do want to talk briefly about the Blue Origin space flight. I'm so glad Katy Perry's okay. And yes, that's exactly where I went. When I heard they're shooting Katy Perry into space, I was like, Don't you hear Katy Perry? The whole thing to me was more media circus than I don't know if there was a scientific value to it or not. I don't know who paid for it, but
it's Jeff Bezos paid for it.
Okay, Jeff Bezos can afford it.
Blue Origin is Jeff Bezos' thing. Actually, I think the woman paid for it. Because I think it was some absurd amount for each of them to go, right? Like $120,000 per person.
All right, and all of them can
all
afford
of
it.
them, Katy Perry, Gayle King, so on and so forth. So, I don't know. I know that to criticize this, that there's going to be the feminist people out there like, oh, you hate women. I don't. This is just stupid, right? Like these women literally did nothing. They just had a whole bunch of money. And they paid to go really high up in the air through the atmosphere, which, I mean, congratulations that we can do that, but they're not the first to do it.
When Jeff Bezos did it, we called him out.
Right.
So,
it was stupid when Jeff Bezos did it. I like these things, I don't even know why we're doing this. I don't understand how. I mean, this is literally.
Is it just rich people doing rich people shit?
That's all. Now, if you want to say that they're using this, SpaceX, they figured out how to get in space, out of space to the to the space station. They're picking up astronauts that were stranded. They got the things that return themselves.
And they deserve a lot of credit for that.
Yes, I mean everything that SpaceX is doing is pretty fucking crazy. Right, they're ahead of NASA, and I guess we all paid for it because of their contracts. Whatever. Okay, fine, but I don't understand because of SpaceX. I really don't even see how these other companies. What are you even selling? Right, just going up really high and then coming back down. I mean, again,
the world's most expensive amusement park.
Right. I mean, I guess, but I mean, it's just it seems like Elon Musk could turn it, and this is where I don't know. If he wanted to, I feel like he could just say, hey, if you pay $250,000 and I can get 6 of you on a shuttle, I'll send you up to the space station. You can check it out and then come back down. Right? I know. I'm sure there's more shit to it than that, but he could do that today.
Yeah.
If he wanted to. So what is even the point of what the fuck they just did? If I'm Katy Perry, I'm I'm going to pay $125,000. Right, to go up real fast and come right back down. But Elon Musk is literally saving astronauts.
Which he deserves credit for. And there is one thing that has been talked about, and I don't know any of the science behind it, but that is getting rid of waste from this planet and putting it on the moon. Whether or not that's a practical thing, I don't know. We do have overfilling landfills, so maybe there is some now. There's different.
How could we possibly afford to do that? How many space trips would you need to get rid of the gas?
I think a lot.
And how much would it cost per flight?
Are we serious? I'm not. So I heard that said, and I wanted to say that someone did say there was some scientific value to it. I don't know the logistics.
Look, I've thought about it. There was a show that used to come on Fox, and then it was called Futurama. It was the same people who did The Simpsons. But they covered that in one of the episodes. It was just a short period, but they fly to space in the trash or fly trash into space. Yes, into space. And I've thought about that, but then it's just we don't have interstellar travel to the point where we've got it efficient enough where we're doing it on a regular basis, and I feel like you would have to be sending multiple shuttles to the moon to get rid of the trash.
And maybe it wasn't to put it, maybe just to launch it into space. And we've got enough satellites floating around up there. Maybe just get it off the planet and create landfill space. But I don't know if it's practical.
Is that a problem? Space trash is a problem.
Space trash is also a problem. Yes.
I literally just saw something that said there's too much.
That's satellites and stuff. That I have a friend who's worked on satellite technology for a bunch of years, and he worked in batteries, and he told me that they intentionally make the batteries not go bad, but they intentionally have a life of 4 or 5 years because other components and stuff, they just when this thing burns out its battery, fine, we're not going to try to bring it back. We can't afford to. We can't recharge it, so now it's debris. Well, you can only throw shit on the ground so many times or shit in the sky so many times before you're filling it up. I don't know if there's any real scientific value to this. I just wanted to put it out there because I did hear it. And you told me Katy Perry had some story about Wendy's?
Yeah, Wendy's kind of gave the congratulations. Wendy's has got a little.
Their Twitter is pretty funny.
Yeah, their social media is a little spicy. They got some spicy nugs, and they kind of were just like, "Oh, thank God, Katy Perry made it back, and she kissed the ground, and she liked it." And
to the tune of "I kissed a girl and I liked it." Okay, that's awesome.
And they just had some kind of smart ass remarks.
They're funny,
right? They're funny, and there's nothing that they said. They didn't say anything mean, or it was all just sort of.
And that's kind of back to where we started. Like, they can take a jab or two, but if they insult a megastar,
which they did.
Which I mean,
and so, people affiliated with her said, "Oh, Wendy's went too far," and I don't think Wendy's cares. So, I think this is a kudos to Wendy's, even though you love Katy Perry.
Oh, I'm all for them making fun of Katy Perry. I just still love her. All right, real quick, we got to wrap this up, but. Next week, or this week, Thursday, is the first round of the NFL draft. The draft will be concluded by the time we record again. Not going into huge details. Who do you want on the Steelers? Round one.
I need a big defensive lineman that can do what I need him to do in the run game. That fixes my defense. You fix my defense, and that resolves a lot of my problems. And then ideally in the third round, I doubt he'll be there, but I would like Will Howard from Ohio State. And then after that, give me a running back. This draft is deep with those. Give me a DB, and then just kind of backfill with whatever's left available. But we don't have a ton of draft capital. So we don't really have any. We can't really make any moves. And so we're going to be somewhat reactionary, drafting at 21, and then not again until 83.
Ooh.
So
you traded away for Metcalf.
Yeah, we traded our second round pick away for DK Metcalf. I think that the Steelers are going to stick to their draft board, which was go get your defensive lineman, go get your Stephon Tuitt or your Casey Hampton. And there's a couple guys who could fill that role in this draft.
Is Kenneth Grant one of them?
Yeah, you got Grant. You got the kid out of Oregon. Well, Michigan's got two guys.
Yeah, well, the one guy's going really early.
Yeah, he's as good as gone in the top 10. There's the kid out of Ole Miss. This is a deep D-line draft. I think that they can get what they need in the first round, and then. You need a running back. You need a quarterback. But this draft and the next draft aren't great for quarterbacks. Everyone's like, wait till you get your quarterback next year, and it's just like, look, Arch Manning isn't coming out next year. I know everyone just is assuming that he is. Eli stayed an extra year. Peyton stayed an extra year. Arch Manning doesn't need the money. Between his family, between NIL, everything else, he doesn't need the money. Historically, their family, they're going to stay. Right, they want the experience, and they want to be able to play. He played in 3 or 4 games sparingly this year. He'll have next year. He'll barring injury, he'll be the full-time starter. That's not enough. I'm telling you, Arch Manning is going to stay at Texas another year. This Iamalva kid, Iamaleva, who was at Tennessee, he just transferred to UCLA. I think he's going to get exposed at UCLA. He may come out, but I think his stock is going to plummet. That leaves you with Drew Aller at Penn State, and then that leaves you with the kid at South Carolina. I think Aller ends up being probably your top choice. Solid kid, but he kind of buckled under pressure this year in the playoffs. And the kid at South Carolina, we'll see if he can have another solid season, but I wouldn't. He's somewhere between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders and Malik Willis, right?
Okay.
I don't know really where he sort of fits. We'll see another year of productivity, but all that to say, look, quarterback drafts the next couple this year and next year are not great. And so the Steelers, you've got Mason Rudolph, who no one loves, but I think may be able to be something. I think you got to kind of ride with him. Maybe Rodgers comes. I doubt that he does. It sounds like he's pretty much retired. So you draft a guy that you try to develop over the next couple of years, see where the draft shakes out. But you got to go and fill some of these other needs that you have: D-line, running back, edge, DB, different things like that. So I'm hoping they don't do anything silly with the quarterback. If they took one in the third, I'd be okay with that.
All right, well, Kenneth Grant is getting mocked to the Bills in some, and then other mock drafts have him going way earlier. But he's kind of the guy that I'm eyeing up. And I think his last name is Harmon, is the defensive tackle from Oregon.
Yeah.
And he's option B to me. But a
I
run-stuffing tackle
can tell
would
you,
be...
if Grant is there, if Grant is there at 21, I think the Steelers take him. And I think that he's their 1A.
He's their target.
And Harmon is 1B. The kid out of Ole Miss, I want to say...
I'm not going to come up with it, but now you're talking about it.
Noel? I can't think of his name now. But the kid out of Ole Miss, I've seen him kind of all over the board. But I think that the guy that they want is there, and that's what they're going to do. All this other stuff about a quarterback in the first round, if Shador falls, there's a chance they could take him. But if one of their...
I've seen Jackson Dart projected to last that long.
Jackson Dart shouldn't go before the third round. Now,
interesting.
Hold on. Let me be clear. From productivity, talent standpoint, he should not be drafted before the third round. He will go much higher than he should because
he's a quarterback. In a thin quarterback draft.
In a very thin quarterback draft, but he's not. I would be stunned if he goes in the first round. Unless a team trades up, from the second round because he fell. If a team trades up from the second round that already drafted in the first round.
Cleveland, for example.
So Cleveland, maybe.
They've got an early second round pick.
Yeah.
They could trade up and...
Yes, maybe. But that kid, I don't think that he should go before the third round.
I'm not sure I've ever seen him play.
I watched him play.
Well, I know you watch a lot more football than I do.
I do. I watched him play a few games. And he does not do it for me.
All right. Well, next time we talk, two things will have happened. The NFL draft will have occurred, and I will stop wasting my time with all these motherfucking mock drafts that I pop up on my feed, and I read them, and
I don't read other people's mock drafts. I just do my own, and I do too many.
Do it, and it happens every fucking day.
I literally just make my own, and it's sickening the amount of time I put in the NFL.
All right,
and not get paid for it.
You start getting paid for it, and then I need to just stop looking at this shit. It's like it's a fucking drug. I know it's bad for me, and yet I'm doing it anyway.
You're bad with that.
I am. Kiss my ass. All right, you ready to roll?
Yeah.
We are at Whiskey Congress on Instagram and X. Thank you for listening, and we're done.